So I'll probably skip the introduction since Casper was so kind to do it for me. Okay, so well, there are many reasons why we are here. For me, this is obviously that I have this presentation. For a lot of us, this is because this is a very good opportunity to network, to have some fun, and spend some time with other React Native developers. But for the majority of us, this is also because we are a part of quite unique community, a community that enjoys a variety of choice in terms of technologies, a community that hates to reinvent the wheel, so we tend to use a lot of verified solutions. And much less ironically, we tend to iterate really, really fast with the features. So in general, JS allows us to do so, but usually this has been happening on the business logic level. So we've been iterating with specific features really fast. But recently, we've been able to observe a larger trend of attempting to increase the development velocity by going in parallel for multiple platforms. And this is quite problematic. Why is this? This is a React Native meetup, so this might sound a bit controversial, but, well, hear me out. React Native, by definition, is a cross-platform solution, and initially, cross-platform in React Native was Android plus iOS, but nothing stood in the way of including web in this group by using React Native for web. And this approach has kind of sunken in. We've been getting a lot of libraries which are supporting web platform as well. Expo is supporting web much more eagerly than it used to. And we also started adopting much more web-related patterns, such as server-side rendering, file-based routing, and so on and so on. So there are a lot of influences. And unfortunately, this brings some problems. For me, the topic started with Tailwind. And for those of you who haven't used it for some reason, Tailwind in general, in a very large simplification, looks like this. I also heard about its React Native counterpart, but the general premise is, in both variants, applying atomic styles to the components, and after that, Native Wind will additionally process them to match the specific platform. The Tailwind approach solves some really important problems. So at some point, it's really hard to manage all CSS files. It's really unintuitive to have some overrides we've skipped along the way. And it's just much more readable to have everything so close to the UI. But unfortunately, these problems are web-specific. They do not exist in React Native. Moreover, Starsheet API is quite popular in React Native. It still holds really well, according to the React Native survey and according to what I've seen so far in other projects in the company. So obviously there are still libraries such as Unistyles that are using similar patterns to it. It's amazing, but there's nothing wrong in using well-liked solutions such as Native Wind because it doesn't solve any platform-specific problems. It's still well-liked, it's still convenient, and many developers are still utilizing it. In general, the issues start when we start mixing styles for web and mobile. And the simplest example would be different default values per each platform. So obviously, each platform uses whatever is more commonly used in terms of the styling and expands towards the direction with more space available. Defaults to units adapted separately per each platform. And because of that, even if we are using solutions that are processing styles across the platforms, we are recommended to be more accurate in terms of how we define them. This is from the native wind, obviously. There are also different values available per each style property and style depending on the platform. This is something that React Native for Web would handle for us, but we are basically getting a third set of the values, which is kind of easy to forget about because, well, we are getting a lot of logic underneath, and this is handled for us. But let's get back to the source of the problem. All those styling differences stem from the platform layouts. So this, in turn, affects components. On mobile, we would rather create simpler components to handle the UI. And for the web, where there is much more space, we'll probably be much more eager to use atomic styling and so on. But layouts also affect how we navigate between the screens. So there's something like file-based routing, and obviously it started in Next.js, and afterwards it moved to the Expo router. Now we can use it, and it looks fairly similar. So we are getting routes based on the file structure. We are getting dynamic routes formatted in a very similar way, and the general premise is the same. But unfortunately, mobile navigation is not as simple as the web one. On mobile, we are getting top tabs, drawers, bottom tabs, and so on. So putting everything like this to the format of file-based routing is not as easy as it might seem, even though trying to standardize it is a generally good approach. And obviously, mobile is using navigation more eagerly as a pattern. So instead of getting a large form with all the values nested on one screen, we would be getting multiple screens with different values. And this also affects the nestings we have in the file structure. So taking this as an example, this is a private app on a very early stage. And there are already a lot of screens, but I am expecting there to be many, many more because, well, the nestings are happening, the patterns in the forms are happening, and there would be really a lot of models. And regarding the aspect of React Native for web, we are still using mobile navigation patterns there. So this is basically a scaled up version of the mobile app we are going to get. And this might sound a bit weird to have bottom tabs on the web, and we might need to handle it separately. We might need to apply all those things in a different manner. So for example, we might need to utilize custom stack navigators and some other patterns. And also going the other way around, we might need to apply some platform-specific code which is targeting web, because web is utilizing search params more often. Web is having some navigation patterns such as back button or being able to skip some parts of the flow itself. So this might be at some point really, really annoying. There's also a matter of gestures per platform specifically. So simple hardware differences are leading towards web utilizing more hovers, mouse scrolls, and something related to the devices we are using just to navigate through everything on this platform. And mobile is having a lot of touch-based utilities, and it's working on a much smaller scale. So the general question would be, is it worth it? Well, to some extent, yes. The misconception, though, is that it doesn't affect the development process. React Native Web, Expo Router, all style libraries that are targeting web platforms are in general really, really useful, and a lot of people really like them. But this approach works to some extent only. So when we are targeting much smaller apps or middle-scale apps, this is going to be really well because we can verify our features really, really fast. The issue starts when the solution is verified and we are aiming at something much more convenient for a user base per different platform. So we might want to target user experience specifically at this point. And every single app is different. Every single app has different patterns, and obviously there are apps that manage to handle it, although it requires a lot of work and sometimes a lot of expertise. But sometimes developing two apps in parallel might be the best solution and might lead to the better user experience. Thank you.